I'm such a star.
Hello and welcome to the Cloud Therapist channel. I'm Richard Simon. Today we are going to be doing a review of the, what's it called now? Cloud Expo Europe?
Tech Show London.
Tech Show London, Cloud and AI Infrastructure Show. I don't know, maybe all three. Anyway, so Cloud Expo Europe has been the title that we've done in the past when we've done the review. And I think for this year it's called the Cloud and AI Infrastructure Show.
That's just one of them.
Oh, that's just one of them.
There's 5 of them.
And there's 5 of them. There's the big data center world.
Yeah, the security, cyber security,
cyber, data
center world,
DevOps world. Yes, all of those together.
Hence it's called Tech Show London.
Yeah, Tech Show. The Tech Show. The Tech Show London. Indeed. Okay, anyway, that's enough of the titles. Right, so, I have with me, as usual, Paul Bevan. Paul, you may know from our monthly segment, the Cloud State of Play. Paul, how are you doing?
I'm good. It's been an interesting day.
It has been.
Feet are sore, but actually quite a lot to talk about, I think.
Indeed, yes. I think we're pretty much tired. And the reason we've been really tired is because for this year, they actually asked us to be chairs of the theatres.
Correct.
Right, so we each had our own theatre, kind of, and we had to do a lot of chairing, a lot of hosting, a lot of announcements and things like that. So that's been the difference for this year. Not just people that have turned up for and registered for the show. So so we've kind of been just running around, sort of doing that sort of duty for today. But I picked up. What was kind of the main thing for you, Paul? I picked up the. First of all, the orientation of the whole show was different for this year, as we said earlier, right? They kind of did a 180 of all the sections.
On the opposite side from where it normally is, and they switched around literally 180 degrees all the different 5 different sections.
Yes.
So I was definitely a very confused old man for the first hour.
Yes. And I was confused as well. So, but it was interesting. I think they were kind of just maybe testing us or something like that. So certainly, I think we saw that the data center was kind of back with a roar.
Yeah.
There was. I noticed that the actual floor space was a lot bigger this year as well.
Yeah, and I think I've had 2 or 3 comments from people that said they've never seen DCW, Data Center World, so full.
So full, indeed. Yes.
One gentleman who's from the Swiss data center agency called it dense. I've never seen it so dense. And my immediate sort of cynical head went, "Oh, they're not that dense, surely." but I got his meaning. Actually, it was very, very busy. I mean, the other thing that struck me forcibly, and particularly when you're talking about data centers, was AI was all-encompassing. Virtually everything you looked at, everything we heard, all the presentations, AI was infused through it. Virtually all the time. I never thought I'd put the words cables and interesting in the same sentence.
As AI.
But actually, kudos to Deborah from Eland who did a really wonderful one on cabling in data centers and the impact of AI and different types of cabling, and it was just like, wow, I hadn't realized. So the other takeaway is that AI, has a very high level visibility, but we're starting to see it seep right the way down to the bottom of the stack, and it's affecting virtually all parts of it. It's interesting.
Yeah, and so what was the theatre that you were in? Just kind of give me a little bit of background on that.
So the theatre was in Data Center World. It was operational transformation and resilience. And really what it was looking at was, what are the challenges in terms of the stress being put on the system from increased energy requirements, increased power requirements, sustainability issues, but also the fact that it has become such a critical element in our daily lives how do you make these things resilient? So virtually everything in the stream, the theatre that I was chairing, covered those sort of areas from, how is AI helping, improve operational efficiency, but right through to things like what's happening on the grid. Where are we getting efficiencies in the grid? There were people from National Grid there,
Right.
and people from.
I noticed that.
Not some, what I don't know what they call them. They're sort of specialist, sort of slightly off-grid type people, or they're brokers who are helping people to get on the grid faster.
Right.
So there was, and each time you came there, what's causing this? Well, it's AI. And it's interesting. It's, I think there may be a leveling out, and there may be a sort of reckoning in a couple of years' time when, we get past this stage. But at the moment, it's every conversation starts with AI's doing this.
Right, and the one I was in was called the Energy Efficiency Theatre, and I had to say I found a lot of the data center kind of stuff that was being discussed. There was a couple of panels for today, and I found that the kind of people who turned up for the panel were very cliquey as well. They were all kind of from different, sort of backgrounds, but all related to data center, power, and cabling and cooling and that sort of world. But it was kind of quite cliquey, I found.
It is, and it highlights one of the continuing challenges, in the sense that the IT world and let's call it the building management, the data center infrastructure management type arena, the two sides simply have not connected. We've talked about how DevOps doesn't work. Well, people have been talking about getting the two sides to talk to each other. My goodness me, that talk needs to happen pretty quickly.
Quickly, yes, indeed.
At the moment, it's not happening.
And I think there was a sense of urgency, certainly in a lot of the conversations, a lot of the panel discussions that I picked up from today. So yes, as we said, there's kind of different sections to the whole sort of event. We can't really do everything justice because there's just so much going on, lots of exhibitors and so on. But I kind of just picked up from the Energy Efficiency Theatre some interesting points from the panelists that were kind of having the conversation. Again, I'll try and provide some links in the description of the video for everything, so do check those out. But there was a lot of kind of discussion around, can we meet the energy requirements? And obviously this has come about because of generative AI and kind of the explosion on AI recently. And you and I have discussed kind of the power requirements, the likes of Microsoft looking at things like small modular reactors or SMR, nuclear SMRs, and things like that. An interesting point on that came up today, two actually interesting points. SMRs actually will require the size of two football, that's soccer, if you're not in the UK, the size of two football pitches in order to actually set up an SMR environment. And they will cost somewhere between £2 billion to £4 billion. That was one of the things that came out of the conversation from the panel today. There was also talk about, I think they were quite bullish actually in terms of meeting the requirements. So there was lots of kind of positive statements, things like in the right power, the right time at the right price sort of approach, and they were quite positive in terms of yes, we do realize that it needs to happen. We are working on it, and we will make it available.
And again, it came out in the theatre I was chairing as well, very similar, but slightly different angle, and that really was the fact that the national grid in the UK is going to struggle to meet that, and therefore, if they're going to provide power to data centres, it's going to start going off grid.
Yes.
But there's ways in which you can make the existing grid more flexible.
Right.
And there was quite a few discussions around ways in which you could, if you like, broker it in the system to make sure that, at the moment, if you've got a new data center idea, you want a new data center, you go into a queue that means you probably won't be able to start building before about 2032.
Yes.
And therefore, how the heck do I get onto the sort of ladder, as it were, to start building. And that needs a very different thought process from the grid providers.
Indeed. Yeah.
But again, it just showed the sort of the other interesting discussions come out, and it was intriguing that we were having it without real developers in the room, was around how do you mitigate the demand? How do you improve the demand? We were talking about the role of developers in developing applications that were not as power hungry.
Yeah.
How do you do that? So there were a lot of those sort of conversations, as well as how do you incentivize people to use to make better use of the IT infrastructure they've got, and things like, if you're going to train your LLM, why do you want to do it at prime time, 4 o'clock on a weekday afternoon when everybody's putting the kettle on? You need to do it at 2 a.m. in the morning.
Yes.
And so there was quite a lot of those. But the interesting thing from my perspective, of course, is that it's still being done in the bubble without the IT developers in the room, and that conversation needs to take place. It'd be lovely to have sort of get it from the other angle and see whether other, theatres outside DCW and some of the other areas were talking about that from their angle. And somewhere down the line, I think we as analysts, we as sort of influencers, if you can call it so in the modern term, need to say to people, we need to talk. It's as simple as that.
So shall we coin a phrase? I think we're going to need some dev power ops. I think that's the new term that we're going to need to use. So you heard it here first, guys. Dev power ops. Okay.
And I'm going to slit my throat now.
Did you know that 80% of you watching right now aren't subscribed yet to this channel? Come on, guys, we can do better, surely. So please hit subscribe and the notification bell. It costs nothing, but it really helps me to keep making more videos for you. All right, back to the therapy session. Okay, so what else I heard in just kind of in that space, somebody was talking about talent and people kind of coming into the data center sort of world and so on. I was kind of slightly cynical in regards to that. He said, we still have an opportunity for the next 20 years or whatever for data centers. I thought, okay, maybe. Just kind of depends on what kind of data center you're talking about. If it's a hyperscale data center, yes. If it's somebody else doing an ABC data center, I'm not sure. And the interesting quote I got from one of the panelists was, he said, we are not proud enough of our industry and what we do. It's not an attractive industry for young people. So that was on the talent side of kind of bringing in fresh blood, newer, younger generations to kind of work on these problems and so on. I don't know. I mean, it was just interesting.
I've heard that a number of times over the course. I wish I would just say the last few months. The last few years, they keep saying it, and it's now a serious issue. I mean, one that caught my attention was the theme was about how do you provide funding for this growth of data centers going on, and actually the presentation was only very small part of that part, but a guy called Matt Hawkins, who was CEO of Kudo Compute, which is a setup. He calls it one of the neo clouds, whatever that is.
That's a new term. We'll have to look that one up.
Yeah, absolutely. There we go. But he was
added to our list.
It's GPU as a service,
right?
Yeah. Okay. Which is you've talked about.
Which we've talked about before.
And he was talking about two things. Firstly, was the ROI and the contracts were quite different. So basically the contracts are for 2 to 3 year contracts, and the ROI is a sort of 24-month ROI. It's very, very different than the sort of funding needed for data centers. So, I mean, there was a couple of guys on the same panel who were talking about, 20-year investments in data centers. And he said, well, very, very different. He said, but the real challenge, the real interesting one, was when it came to the hyperscalers or even in enterprise data centers, was it causes quite a challenge because you've now got two very different models. Never mind the power requirements, but the actual funding, the actual floor space,
Right.
all the sort of things. He says, most data centers, whether you like it or not, are still running racks somewhere between 5 and 10 kilowatts per rack.
Yes.
And that will continue for a long period of time.
Yes.
Somehow they've got to accommodate these, up to 1,200 kilowatts per rack. And so the design of a data center is going to have to take that into account. And the specific reference to the hyperscalers was, what do the hyperscalers do?
Right.
Do they, completely go and do GPU only data centers, or do they have to rejig their existing ones?
I think what's going to probably happen, and we've talked about this before. We've talked about the dedicated hyperscale data centers just for AI workloads, for training and inference as well. So we've discussed this before, where it's top to bottom, it's designed specifically only for AI workloads. Right? We've discussed that. So I think will definitely come to pass, but that's not going to happen tomorrow.
No,
that's like in 5 to 10 years' time, when the likes of Microsoft have had their permission to use their SMRs, to build SMRs. And also, one point somebody said was actually reduce the cost of things like SMRs. It'll have to be like built as a factory line.
Yeah.
At the moment, it's not a factory line kind of approach.
Yeah.
So again, you've got another challenge there of turning that type of thing, which is quite proprietary, it takes a long time, and regulations and security and so on, to actually turn all of those things into into a factory line kind of to make the production cheaper.
One of the things that I keep coming across is the difference between the projection for new number of new megawatts of availability growing enormously. And yet the problems of getting onto a grid or getting the finance or all sorts of challenges, people sort of starting to land bank. Everything's going on, and long supply chains, time frames to get material that they need, and you're starting to think actually this may act as a bit of a blocker on some of the GPU plans. And then the United States coming up with their sort of tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. I'm going to restrict GPUs. Do anything about tier 1?
Yeah, and I picked up one of the comments. Somebody said that the latest NVIDIA chips are, draining somewhere around sort of 100 kilowatts per meter per square meter in a data center. So you need that much in terms of a power generation system to drive one of those GPUs. Yeah. Okay. And which is, that's just amazing.
But we come back, and one of the other debates was around, how are we going to get, so let me give you the example. Copilot now automatically, when you do a
query,
Google query,
a prompt,
a Google prompt, you just quite happy with what a normal Google return gives you the AI equivalent.
Yeah.
And you think, how much, and given that it's a 6 to 10 times the power of just the simple search, when are we going to get Microsoft to say, make that an opt-out or an opt-in? At the moment, you can't even opt out.
No.
It's there.
Yeah.
And you think, how much is that wasting?
Yeah.
So again, there's conversations that have got to be had. Anyway, we'll see.
Yeah. And also, I think there was talk about the sort of, whether we're able to achieve the 5 gigawatt hyperscale data center. Again, they were quite bullish on that and kind of quite positive. That was kind of equating to around, I think they said £20 per megawatts per hour in terms of production as well. So there was, I think, a lot of that sort of stuff going on. I think we may have to do a little bit more homework on all of this stuff and brush up on these.
I think if we
I can't believe we're back to talking about data.
But I think if we're talking about cloud, the state of the cloud, and almost by implication, we're talking about the state of AI. And I know you've got an AI channel, but I mean, it's all intertwined in terms of what's going on. I think there is a conversation to be had that needs to pull both sides together of the argument to say, how do we resolve this? You know, what are our responsibilities in IT as opposed to your responsibilities in the construction, you know, building industry building management, you know, DSIM world of pulling it together. And I think, you know, that's something that maybe we need to look at as a sort of, is there a you know, stick our flag in the down and say, you know, we need to have this conversation. You know, as an old hardware man, I'm delighted.
I'm sure you are. I'm sure you are. Okay, so let's move on a little bit. So one of the other sections was around DevOps. So I picked up that Red Hat was there. Red Hat was talking about Red Hat AI, which is quite interesting. And I had a conversation with them, and they just said, yeah, we're supporting AI workloads. Okay, so presumably that's in your virtualization, presumably that's in OpenShift for containerization, and so on. And I think the answer was yes. Okay, so all right. I don't know what else to say about that, because I think everybody is doing that, right?
Yeah,
so,
it's one of the frustrations of coming to any event like this is the number of times you get the generalities, and the generalities all sound the same.
Yeah.
You know, and you have to do what we do, trying to get under the covers to say, you know, what's different about this? Why should you care?
Exactly.
Why should you care?
Right.
And it's, you know, these are difficult, and you know, I've said before, these shows work quite well if you've got a physical, I can touch the product.
Yes.
But if you're trying to get the message across about a server, you know, most people are not good at doing that in you know, the old elevator test. You know, at the time you're on the elevator, you've got to be able to explain it to the CEO.
And I still maintain that AI, when you're doing at least certainly the training, it's an HPC workload.
Yeah.
And the best way to get an HPC workload to work is to get it bare metal, as close to the hardware as you can, so you can actually take advantage of the full hardware. Not to virtualize it, not to necessarily put it in containers and open source it and so on, which goes back to the point that I've said a number of times before, that, you know, open source seems to need AI, but AI does not necessarily need open source. Okay, so that was one. The other one that was actually surprising to see was these guys, Docker. So thank you, Docker, for the chocolates. But it was actually surprising to see Docker was actually there, and a huge stand as well, which was fantastic. Now they've got some AI solution going on. I don't think it's one of the recent ones that they announced, but we'll have a look at that. So if I've had a chance, I may have done an interview, so that might be out on the channel already. Check it out. If not, it might come out soon. So we'll see. But yeah, Docker was there, and as was Harness. So you guys maybe know about Ravi Luckman, who was an ex-CTO, I think he's now in their sort of enablement training teams. He's been on the channel a number of times. He did a Cloud State of Play episode with me last year as well, so check that out. I'll try and make that available somewhere, and certainly the link in the description of the video. So Harness was there doing the usual stuff as well around DevOps and things like that. Again, if I do get a chance, I might do a little interview with them as well. GitLab was there as well, so GitLab was flying the flag in the DevOps space. I didn't see really a huge amount of kind of new stuff, apart from the kind of, you know, everything with AI today from those guys. But again, like I said, I could be wrong. We'll try and maybe get some more information and maybe have just some separate interviews with those guys as well. The other one was security. Again, usual suspects there. So, you know, all the kind of usual people were in the security section. I didn't see a huge amount of security kind of changes or differences or anything like that was sort of happening in that space. But the main aspect, I think, again, was that it was being done with AI. That was the main thing. I think that we
it has become, you know, the all-encompassing theme of the show, really, I think, is AI, and I think it needs to go through to it needs to mature into something slightly different. At the moment, it feels like, it's almost like, I've got a cloud. They've now got, well, I've got AI. And
and the security side, I think I'm hearing two things. So I'm hearing we can now do it heuristically with AI and things like that, and our platform is now AI enabled. And I'm thinking, but so is the hackers platform.
Yeah.
And they're training theirs to be anti what you're training it to be as well. So how are you gonna, how do you deal with that?
And you want to say to them that, despite the fact that quantum may, from a normal commercial sense, may be a good 10 years away from being, reality, there are some quantum systems out there that are at the sort of low end. There's going to come a point from a security perspective where you've got to get your head around quantum. And I'm surprised there's not more of that going on at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's still early days, although obviously the recent announcement from Microsoft, the Majorana, I think it was, whatever it's called. I think that's, it's a game changer. That's kind of getting it to a chip level almost, right?
Yeah, it's getting, but also there's been quite a lot of progress in sorting out the error correction problems, the error issues, but you're not really having sort of full-powered quantum, and you won't have that for many years. But nonetheless, even in its current state, it may start to do damage to things like security areas, and I didn't see anybody trying to get to grips with that.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, so let's close out the review, Paul. So what was kind of your overall view? Final remarks.
Well, first and foremost, there's a buzz, and I think, everybody said it's fuller this year than we've ever seen it, in the last few years. It looked like most stands had a lot of activity going on. I mean, quite often in previous years, some stands have been, why the heck are they there?
Yes.
So I think there's been a genuine buzz around the place, which is good to see. And in this sort of interesting world that we live in the moment, you could see an awful lot of, both opportunities and threats. But I think there was a general sort of, right, we're going to get up and really, make this one fly. It was interesting. It's more upbeat than it has been for the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and certainly in the energy efficiency theatre that I was chairing, every session was packed, and actually every session was oversubscribed. There was people standing at the back.
I'm the same in mine. Same in mine. Even the last one before everybody goes home.
Indeed.
So that was good. So I think I'm sure the organisers will be very happy.
I'm sure.
We may change their minds later.
maybe. But I mean,
it's been as busy and as buzzy as I think I've ever seen it.
Yes, indeed. And the word that I picked up for today was adaptation, as far as data centers and kind of the way that we build data centers and things like that. So both the ones that we have at the moment and the ones that we want to build for, standard sort of hyperscaler type of stuff, or for customers, as well as for Gen AI sort of workloads as well.
We call it being mutable, of course.
You call it being mutable. For mutable, check out Bloor Research. We'll drop a link on mutable as well. Okay. So, Paul, thank you very much for your time.
No.
I think we're now. What are we doing now? We're going to go and have some Chinese. Okay.
I hope so.
That's what we planned. That's why I booked the table. Excellent.
I do hope so.
Okay, well, thank you again. So appreciate your insights for today. Thank you guys all for watching. We'll drop some links in the description of the video, and we will talk to you next time. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to support me. You may also want to check out some of the other videos on this channel. Bye for now.